last 10 minutes. So obviously I know Tim.
Yeah.
Man, nice to meet you. John, nice to meet you. All right. So how many of you have any kind of like sound experience? You need to been back here on a Sunday. How many of you had any of that kind of like experience so far?
Not sound, but like I had a projector.
Okay.
And
So not completely new to you then. Gotcha. I want to start off just talking a little bit about the philosophy. So, you know, when we come to a church on Sunday, especially you guys, you are running very quickly. So you're kind of between a turnaround service, right? So you have your Chinese speaking service, then you have your English speaking service, and your time frame in between is about 15 minutes? 15 minutes. So is that ever like a little stressful?
No.
A little. So some of that like that usually works well if the pieces don't change, right? But for churches, especially when more people come, what's the one thing they want to do, right? They want to get involved. So the challenge is, how do you create a system where you can grow? All right. So when people come in and say, hey, we have worship on Sunday, we love to have you involved. If you play drums, you be a drummer, or you be a bass player, whatever it is, so you want to be able to grow. But that 15 minutes extremely valuable. You're not checking pastor's life or maybe a guitar, local, too local. You're going to have all these additional things going on. How do you get a system with that? So that's part of what a lot of Tim and I have talked about recently. And just so you guys know, like, you know, Grace has really adopted and is trying to get behind that ability to be able to expand. So they're investing some money, I think, to put a mediator system in. Just to say, hey, how do we do things to help create more expansion in the church and give people the opportunity to be able to give people a chance to be involved. But you know, if you can like write this down and make a note to know, the most important thing on a Sunday morning is that everyone who comes into this room hears God's word. It's the most important, no matter what. Because you know what, if you can't find a guitar signal or you can't find a keyboard signal, we can all still sing it together, right? We said that this morning, we can think the most important thing is that God's word is heard because we believe it transforms us when we hear it. And so when I come into any environment and you're going to be in production, you almost have to have this mindset that like, the most important thing is to make sure that God's word is heard by those that come here today and that it can be transformed. Just want to make sure we've got that. And if you have a live stream, you have other stuff going on. People, if you don't want people watching you at the other end, you're like, I can't hear it. You can't hear it. So that's a pretty big deal if you're at home, you're sick, and you can't make it all of a sudden, you're not able to hear it. So just to make it know that like when you come in, your posture should always be, hey, God's word is the most important thing that we're trying to deliver to every single person in this room and then also live stream. But then worship's a pretty big component, right? So being able to come together, it definitely says that don't forsake the gathering of the saints together and worshiping together. So being together and worshiping in this room is a real powerful moment. It encourages each of us. We're able to, it edifies one another. And also, you know, it says that when two or more gathered and worship the call on the Lord, that he comes into our midst, right? So there's just something powerful about being together and worshiping the Lord as well. So when you think about your stage, and you think about people going on up there and people going on back here, working and doing whatever jobs, just always make sure that the attitude of your heart is not to let the moment or kind of like the quickness of your turnaround, even some of the challenges, always keep in your heart like, I'm here to serve people. I'm here to make sure that people can hear God's word today. That's like the most valuable thing. And you can really help it, and you can also really hurt it, right? If you come in with your own challenges, or you've had this, you know, you have something in the morning where Bill's like, I don't hear you, and you did this, and I'm like, no, it's not bothering me. Like, you know, if this thing starts, which by the way will always happen, okay? It will always happen on Sunday. If this is how you engage, by the time you get to the service, sometimes you're like, I am so done with this today. I'm ready to have this over with, and like, I'm ready to like go to lunch. So you have to really like come in with a heart that is like, no matter what happens, most valuable thing today. I'm here to serve. I want people to hear God's word. We want them to worship, but I also just got to be flexible and like roll with the punches if things happen. Because you have a service right before you where a bunch of stuff could have gotten changed, right? And so you're just trying to figure out. That ever happened to anybody so far? Couple? So then you're like, what did they do, right? So it automatically like evokes this, oh, come on, now I got to figure out what they did to undo it. So anyway, so just keep that always as your focus. In fact, one of the things that I have done for years is when I walk through the doors of the church, I say, God, no matter whatever happens today, I'm here to serve you, and I'm here to serve people. And that's always in my mind, and it just keeps me, because I'll feel my blood like start going like this, right? So it just is a good way to stay real centered. The other thing that is really good to remember is like, what's the congregation, if you're sitting in the congregation on a Sunday, what do you think is the most important part of your experience when you come together? What would you say? Just one thing. Yeah. What's one thing you look forward? That's okay. What's one thing you look forward to on like a Sunday when you get together or you come to church? What's just one thing that you enjoy experiencing?
The worship.
Yep. How about you?
Yeah, like just the atmosphere and being able to worship with everyone else.
Sure.
The fellowshipping with other people when you can come together to glorify the Lord.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, because sometimes it does like get hard.
Right, sure.
The comfort of just being with the group of people you know that all collectively love God.
Dropping off Thea in the nursery. Because when Tim sings, she's like, Dad, Dad, 'cause you can hear the song in the room.
How about you?
I'm all inclusive.
I like it all. You like it all.
I just want to pay tribute to Tim and what he's done. And he has really, bring in the talent, and that's what I'm going to serve. Okay, I can't play like him. Last Sunday, you should have heard him sing. But at the same time, our slides are not working. And it's like you said, it's okay. We're here just to worship the Lord, have that experience. And even though that we didn't have the slides, we had them. And she sings so beautifully last Sunday. It's just like, okay, we got the recording. We might have not had the slide. That's what I said. I said, and it was a technical difficulty with the slides. But what I'm just saying is, we still had good worship.
Yeah, sure.
And it's okay. So one Sunday we don't have the slides, but the other thing of it is, after that part, we still go to listen to what the pastor's got, and for us. And that is what I mean, all inclusive, it just, that is like, okay, we can take a break, sit down, and let Pastor Rowe give us the sermon. And, we're all going to leave happy. It's like, well, we didn't even realize that, we didn't have the slides because it was still a good service.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that probably you notice is when we go around, each of you said something that was completely different. So one of the things to always be thinking about in terms of congregation is everyone has a different experience. And so there's one philosophy, especially around, I would say, production, sound, video, lighting. You're never going to please everyone. And this is very healthy to remember in your own ministry. You are never going to please everybody. You will have the best Sunday. Everything will go super smooth. And there will be one person who comes up and says, I just wanted you to know, I did not like it when, or it bothered me when you did this, or this wasn't loud enough, So the moment you make a change for somebody, then you have a whole other group of people that are like, whoa, 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 I really didn't like that, that's now changed, right? So this is just a philosophy you have to embrace, that you are not, you hope everyone is pleased, but there's no way to please everyone. So you have to develop a little bit of thick skin, okay? You just have to. So when people come up, the best thing you can do is say, hey, thanks for that feedback. I really appreciate that. It doesn't mean that you're going to change anything. It doesn't mean that you're going to all of a sudden make a bunch of adjustments, but you just want them to know, I hear you. Thank you for talking to me about that. And I know these things seem elementary, but they will help you in all areas of the church, because people have this tendency when they're here for maybe even an hour on a Sunday, they will tell you what they like and they will tell you what they don't like. And there's just something in that people feel they want to share with you. So always make sure you see people. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that with me. Hey, we'll consider that. That being said, the most important thing is, as a church, you have a philosophy about what you're aiming for, and that there is there's some kind of like a unified, hey, this is kind of what we all agree on that we're aiming towards. And I think this could be helpful, the more that Pastor Rowe can give his insight to like Sunday mornings and what he's experiencing. You don't have to be a lot of times your lead pastor might not be the best musician, but they're really sensitive to the Lord. And so they want to give you feedback on, this just doesn't feel right to me, or this does feel right to me. And it's really our job to go, hey, you know what? I really want to make sure that I am serving in a way where our lead pastor senses that what God's doing is right, because he's trying to think about the whole picture. And then we have kind of our individual pictures in that. So I would invite often that feedback in, like even if it's Tim or whoever, just saying like, hey, how did Sunday feel? What could have changed that could have made it feel maybe a different direction or better to you? And just always keep that in front of you so that they're involved, because you'll stop creating any kind of distance between where the visionary kind of pastor who's leading the church is going, and then you're kind of over here. Sometimes you can start going like this. And you're going to feel it when the lead pastor comes and says, you really need to come this way. It's very rare that you're going to go to him and say, you need to come this way. You know what I mean? And so it just keeps you in a serving mentality. Does that make sense to everybody? And sometimes that's hard, because you walk up and go, hey, what do you have to share about Sunday? And you kind of know you open the door to hear, this didn't go very well, or that didn't go, but at least it opens conversations for you to understand the heart. And I think that's the most important thing anytime that you're in ministry capacities, is for your heart to always be open to one another. Because we're here to serve one another, but ultimately serve people, right? So hopefully that makes sense to you. And then, think about from the congregation when they come and they're singing, there's this interesting point where, so for instance, if I asked you, how loud should it be in here? How would you define how loud something should be for a Sunday morning when you're doing worship? Have you even thought of that? How loud should it be?
That's one of my pet peeves. I don't like loud Sundays, unless we got the right. And I try to keep the quality to the point where, okay, we can hear the pastor, it's not overbearing, because if you pump that up, it's going to be overbearing, and you just can't, people can't sit here it's just, but if you need to be able to hear somebody, do we bring the individual up, or do we bring the house up? And my whole thing is let's work on the individual. Let's not pound, the people sitting in front. So.
Sure. Anyone else have a thought on how loud should a Sunday morning be?
And for me, when it comes to sound, I personally don't like screechy. I can't, when it's that high pitch, it's just okay, we gotta go do something else here.
Sure.
Just because that's typically normal for most people of it's ooh. So you try your best to make sure the sound quality and how it's going into a mic is not creating that vibration.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's good. Anyone else?
I mean, I think it's just, I want it so that the congregation can, in essence, feel the music, but of course there's like a pretty different distinction between like very loud but clear, or things that make sense, and also things that feedback, you know? So I think it's
100%.
just having that delicate balance so that the congregation can really feel it.
Yeah.
When to have forte, when to have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because of that, we would have more, like, it would invite the congregation to really feel it versus like, oh, it's too loud or too soft or whatever. So.
Yep. Anyone else? Just thoughts. Your own preference, what you like. There's no right or wrong, just to hear one another.
I guess coming from like being on the stage perspective, yeah, I think like balance is definitely like maybe not so much as like, oh, I need it to be this degree of loud or not, but I think like balance is really key. I know we've had some like weeks where like the instruments may like not be perfectly balanced with the vocals or whatever, but I also think it's really important, like, while loudness is one factor, I think for me personally, I like it when I can hear like the voices of the congregation. I hate it when like I'm like singing so loud that like I can no longer hear, because then it doesn't feel like I'm worshiping with people, it just feels like I'm worshiping like, in front of people. Yeah.
That's great, yeah. So in my experience, you have a couple of different ways to approach this, but, so what, on a Sunday, what you're trying to figure out is, how many of you here would say you have a really good voice? Just like, I have a good voice, like I can sing in tune, I have a good voice. Tim, you have a good voice. Come on, raise your hand. How many of you would say you have like a medium voice? Like, I'm pretty good, I'm not like super professional, but I'm good. And then how many of you would say you just are tone deaf, you can't carry a tune? Okay.
That's not
So here's a great question. How do you create an environment where you can sing just as loud as you can sing, and all of you feel like you can do that together? So that's really the question, not how loud should something be, but how to create the environment for that. And typically, I think what you were sharing, Amanda, is great. What you almost want to do is you want to be able to hear yourself singing, and you kind of want to be able to hear those around you, but they're probably going to be maybe a little quieter than you, just because, you know, they're not standing like right in your ears. That probably is a safe environment for people, because if someone can't sing well, the distracting thing about on a Sunday is sometimes they'll be behind you and they're going for it, right? And then you're like, I'm trying to worship, but all I can hear is this person singing back here, and they're worshiping. So like, I would never turn around and be like, don't sing so loud. But it's funny how if the volume comes up a little, how this person starts to dim a little, you don't hear them as much, and you're like, oh, that doesn't affect me. But you want to sing together. So I wish that there was like this perfect decibel level that could be, hey, this is how loud you should run it. I wish that there was this perfect way of saying everything should be right here. But as you're running sound, I think you should always listen to the people. And if the people are singing at a volume and you can't hear the music probably has to come up a little. If you're singing and the music is so loud and you can't hear the congregation, music's got to come down a little. So that way there always is pulling participation, or else what'll happen is you convert everyone to just basically observation. They're just going to observe what's going on the stage. It's so loud, why would I want to engage with that? I'll just watch it. The problem when you engage people and all they do is watch is now you have created a consumer and you've created someone who will judge. So when I don't have to participate, I'm watching the stage and going, do I like this? Well, that sounds out of tune. I don't like his keyboard playing. You know what? And then what's funny on Sundays is, I think this is like how like the like devil works a little bit. There'll be almost like this distraction where you go, you know, I've never noticed, I don't like the color of the ceiling. I don't like the lights. You'll just start like noticing all these things that you don't like. It's just to distract you away from the most important thing, which we're trying to do, which is worship God, right? So just keep that in mind. You know, sometimes people will come in and go, I've got a meter and I think it's way too loud. But by the way, if anybody ever walks up to you and they have a meter on a phone, okay, this is not a meter. Even though you might have an app that shows like a volume in a room, this is really not a reliable source of something that's volume. And you will be shocked how many people go, it's 190 decibels in here. And you're like, oh, so we're all sitting under the space shuttle as it's taking off? Because I don't think so. But they'll be like, that's what my meter says. So like you have to make sure if you are measuring that you have like the proper devices. Do you have people like this?
Her brother.
Okay. Right. So the other thing that you don't realize is if you set your phone down on like a something that is not decoupled from the building. So for instance, vibration, right? So if you're playing the keys and I put my phone on the ledge right here, the vibration in the room from the keys will rattle the wood, right, in the wall, and the wood in the wall will make the sensor in my phone jump really high. So anyway, you'll start getting these readings like, this is crazy loud. That being said, I think what Elizabeth said was really good. I try to set up mixes where they're a little darker sounding, because when they're darker, they're more pleasing in worship environments. If it's too clear, sometimes you're like, yeah, ooh, like you hit one note and it just rolls. And you guys don't,
It's very high.
This room already, you don't hear low end. What is that? It's all high end, right? So the darker your mix is a little bit in here, the more gentle it's gonna feel in the room. And I would consider that, a lot of people would say that feels like more warm, is how they would describe it. Meaning some of the top end, or that real high clarity, that where the dogs start barking kind of, you kind of like trim that off and be mindful of that. So I think that's just a little bit of conversation around like philosophy of a Sunday, and kind of how to approach coming into a room and what to be thinking about. If I was to like quick bullet point it, I would say, God, I'm walking in the door, I want to serve you today, and I want to serve people. Ultimately, the most important thing is that they hear your word today. But we want to worship together. We got 15 minutes to get this rolling, so we want that to be good. Then you want to walk in the room, people are on stage. A great practice on Sunday morning, sound checks are a great way to see people. That's really what you're doing. Yes, you're checking them, but it's really a chance to be like, Tim, I'm so glad you're here today. We wouldn't be doing these things today if you weren't here. Elizabeth, it's so good. I'm so glad you're here. I love it when you sing. If you're ever back here, be someone who walks out and has a constant, thanks for being here. I'm so glad that you're here today. You can help set the tone so much of what Sunday morning feels like, as opposed to, oh, you're playing that. Oh, you need a channel to plug into. Like, it just changes the environment of what a Sunday feels like. So you have a lot of power and a lot of influence on a Sunday. Does that make sense, everybody? You have any questions, or like, as we kind of continue to go forward, but anything that's popped up that interesting situation, funny scenario about anything we've talked about already here?
Well, I'll just do a quick one, because you were saying that like, I would never like tell them behind me that they're singing really bad, they have to stop.
Right.
I went to a Hillsong conference and someone told me that, hey, you're a little loud. And it was really awkward. So I was like, so I'm gonna just stop singing.
Wow.
Like, and that was in a concert too.
Wow.
So like,
and Hillsong's loud.
I know, that's why I was really thrown off, and I was like, pretty
Cutting voice.
it's so bad.
You just got the domination voice there, vocal.
Yeah, I guess.
But like, how does that make you feel though? Like,
right then and there, it just makes me feel like I'm too loud, and I become conscious of what I'm doing, and then I can't worship at that point.
right,
And it was like that for at least a couple of hours or something.
right.
So, yeah, I like what you're saying, like to meld it in and then just kind of, because there are people that are tone deaf.
Yeah.
They are worshiping God.
Yep. There's something about, it talks about singing. It's funny how it says in the word to sing a joyful noise to the Lord. And I've always wondered why it's like sing a joyful noise. It doesn't say sing a joyful melody. It doesn't say sing a joyful, beautiful harmony. It says sing a joyful noise. And I think that there's something that is so all-including in that. To say, you know what you might be singing might just be noise. But if the joyfulness is in your heart that you're expressing to the Lord, it just translates to him that he says, hey, that's like a sweet smell to me. That's a fragrance of worship to me. And I love that about him, and I wish that we could disconnect our judgment at times. But we just have a hard time with that. And me being like a perfect pitch guy, or, like people that really understand music and tonality, you can very quickly start to be like, oh my gosh, all these things bother me, because it's a gift of yours. But you just have to be like, it doesn't matter. I want people to make a joyful noise to the Lord. You'll notice it less on songs where people clap. So this is always why clapping songs sometimes in church to begin can be helpful, because what it does is it makes people participate, and if you're not a good singer or you're not someone who typically does that, you can participate. And so if all of your songs tend to be more of a singing only, and there's not a little bit of ability to do extra things, sometimes it can limit people's involvement, because sometimes people just want to clap and they'll sing really quiet, but they'll clap and it still makes them feel like I'm participating and, you know, I can be part of that. So does that make sense? Cool. All right. Well, what we're going to do this morning is we're going to like talk about real world, walk through your Sunday, and then we're going to talk about the console back here, which of course drives your system. And I think it's helpful, even though to some of you it might be a little boring, but it would be helpful for you to understand how the soundboard is connected and why it does what it does. So that way you can understand it and also appreciate it. And then it should be able to spark in you like opportunity, what you can do with it. So why don't we do that? If anybody, we can take like a quick 5-minute break if we need to. If anybody's got like go to the bathroom, whatever, and then we'll kind of like start to adjust and move. We'll first go up to the stage quick, and then we'll come back here. So we'll do that. We need someone to bring on the Jeopardy music.
Also, like, Jordan woke up early and then he was on his phone and he actually played a video and I was like, he's like, I guess I'm up. So I got up and then I started watching Elementary and then put on an episode and then made cinnamon rolls, and then I looked at the clock and I was like, yeah, I wish I had You're here? You're still here?
Okay. I'll try to talk.
Yeah, we have one for you and me. Keyboard.
Yeah, I should have brought it with me. I don't know why I didn't. It's in my house.
So hey, we're gonna.
The last week it wasn't.
It's mixed, so.
Let's do the OBS. That would be much better actually. Can you give him one?
Should I bring a jacket?
Do you want
No, this is what I was wearing.
Do you want a jacket?
Oh no, I'm just like, because I'm not moving yet. We're just sitting. Well, I know they do this because, you know, on Sundays when everyone's in here, it gets hot. Because you got so many bodies and stuff. Yeah. Like when
Morning, John.
people are in
Did you
here.
work last night?
Not right now. No, I'm like, okay.
Been on here since 93.
You're working tonight?
No. Last night was my
Jacket, but by like, you know, once everyone's singing, I'm like taking it off because I'm like, oh, I get hot really easily. I'm that person.
So were you on last night?
The norm.
I did Tuesday to Thursday, and then I went out with Michelle. I think just in general, summer pedicures, and then, you know what I'm saying, like, my other friends, thank goodness